Hello and welcome to the Sancia block. I'm Santo Jaravino and I'm here for today's topic. I'm going to talk about integrity in education setting as far as how Sancia handles it. Basically, me designing this principle for Sancia comes down to my own personal experiences in dealing with education, both at the compulsory level and at the career fixing level. So I felt a couple things were very important that I feel that our current education system kind of ignores or outright doesn't abide by or does the wrong way. So I guess I'll start elaborating. Well, basically, if you're going to school, you want to learn how to do something and specifically that. Compulsory education in general is designed to help you mesh into society as far as how to communicate with each other or the basics like how to crunch numbers so you could do anything from figuring out how long something is or how much something costs or reading comprehension so you know what you're talking about, things like that. But a few things come to mind that I want to address if I'm going to have an education system in my country is I guess the number one rule among all other things is any sign any sign of like a faction allegiance, say politically or religiously charged individuals, teachers, students, organizations, any of that sort of thing is completely no go in a school setting, especially if it's financed or run by Sancia. The idea behind this is you're going there to learn. Everybody in there in the school is not there to play a pissing contest with who's right, who's wrong, whose faith, this, that. No. You're there to basically enhance your abilities in society. Everybody's there for the same rule. Everybody's got different backgrounds. I'm trying to stress that there should be like no sign of that sort of thing. Some people would disagree and say, well, the idea is to have the free flow of ideas. And I half agree. In the matter of discussion, yes, to learn something, you actually have to see the other side. But as far as promoting it in a setting like school where everybody goes to learn and not to, you know, play one-upsmanship with each other, I just think that's a completely wrong way to go. Something like that I would do outside of school grounds. Otherwise, once you're inside school property, just like keep your mouth shut and work with the subject in hand. The second thing I would consider talking about, let me see, I had a list here somewhere. Okay. Um, yeah, another thing is the way we waste our time learning classes we just don't need. The time I'm spending trying to figure out, let's an example, and I'll go with my own background. I used to like programming for some time. I want to go to school for programming, and yet I'm learning things like American history or technical English writing. Okay, maybe the technical. Let me take that back. English, just reading poetry and things like that. I find that classes like that are completely inconclusive to my ability to be a skilled programmer. That time I'm spending learning, the Civil War or Shakespeare, I should be spending learning how to make, GUI interfaces when I'm programming instead of the usual, learn how to make a variable and if-then statements. I don't know how else to explain it. Some people who don't come in a programming background might not know what I'm talking about. But the idea is we're wasting our time in our current system like learning things we really don't need to learn in the scope of trying to do our job and skillfully. That's the second thing I would address. The third thing is uh, I'm pretty sure that our education system is rigged to be a money-making system. Think about all the books you buy. How if you have to transfer schools, you have to purchase official transcripts, and even though they use unofficial transcripts, I'm just looking at this. I'm like, what the hell's the difference? Why not just take what's there in the transcript? It's all written on paper. It's the same thing, unofficial or official. It's the same exact thing, and just send it over. If you use snail mail, what does it cost? A few cents. If you use email, what does it cost? The electricity to burn to make the transmission. You know, little stuff. There's no need to put costs like that. And books, all right. It's one thing to stay updated. It's another thing when you're buying $400 worth of textbooks and you're only, using it for questions and reading, which you should probably already do, in the school where you're actually getting hands-on training versus lecture. You know what I mean? And now that we have the magic of the internet, well, let's assume for a minute Santia has the ability for internet access, because my point is, we have the ability to house our knowledge. We can make an entire textbook system freely available right there for everybody to see. We can publish it even in book form. Even if you went to book form, use the same basic knowledge, print it out for free. You don't have to have competing companies going for each other's books or any of that. The information is there. Disseminate it. That's it. You don't need to have people buy books if the information's already there. Um, what else is the other thing I wanted to address? Here we go. Let me just check. Okay, here's another thing, and this one is especially important. It's also a bit personal to me. I know most people think it sounds silly, but I'm coming from a Sansia perspective here, and I'm going to say it up front. Essentially, even in the workplace, never mind school, even in work, any concept of taking homework, as in homework, like in school setting, homework, that's completely abolished in Sansia, and I'll tell you why. Homework it's invasive of the personal time you're supposed to be spending with your family. Anything that has to be taken in school must be done during school hours. Same thing with the job. No level of homework should be taken home from work to school. I find that to be an invasion of like your personal time. I think that's wrong, and you know, unless the job is of like dire importance, like maybe an on call for say a really, really, really essential job. Think police, hospital, that sort of thing. You really should not have to take home work. You need to spend time with your family. You need to cultivate, family values and all that stuff, and you're going to have it all lost to doing homework. And it's a draw, especially when we're stuck learning all this, inane stuff and not actually learning anything useful out of it. That's my other gripe. Let's see. And this is not so much of like a major issue like the other ones I explained were, but in some cases I've had classes where like an entire chunk of the time spent in that class was free time. We were all discussing, bullshitting. There was no real like learning. There was no sense of repetition, making sure everybody's got their knowledge down pat. And and I'll be upfront. I don't think that helps at all. Um, the time I could be spending on learning, perfecting my technique, making sure I got everything down pat, test or not, rather than bullshitting 30 minutes hearing the teacher's stories, or just everybody fooling around, whatever. I like I know this sounds pretty silly because now we live in an environment where we should be having fun with our classes, and that's important. But it's like we're not absorbing anything when you're just using the time you're supposed to be teaching, and the students are supposed to be learning and not getting anything out of it. And no, that's not cool. The other thing I want to talk about is education should be free, no question about it. You know, it's like you're privatizing something that, number one, is infinitely available, knowledge, and it's crucial to the needs of a society. When you have people who are illiterate and the only way they become literate is to pay for it, like with what money? That's just silly. No, educate the people regardless. There should be no, how do I say, negotiating a price to enabling people to have the power to function in society. I don't care if it's a matter of literacy. I don't care if it's a matter of technical skill. I don't care if it's a matter of, coming up with master's, PhD, bullshit system. Just, it should cost nothing. Now, that's to say in of course, state finance setting. Obviously, if you're starting your own school, that's your own damn business. But as far as, access to anything crucial, there should be no excuse. Get our nationals trained. Get our nationals educated. Leave nobody behind. Just the concept of having the finance. Why? Just recirculate the money into something we all need. Just let everybody come in as they need to. Anybody who doesn't want to, doesn't have to. In the name of compulsory education, of course they're going to have to, but there's no reason, to otherwise hold it back. You got to get the people trained. If you got to put a cost burden on them, then there's a problem. And the other thing I wanted to think about is, how do I put this? I have mixed feelings about the anti-bullying movements that are out there. To be upfront, I do believe in the cause. Like, a school should at least be responsible enough to keep the children in line from doing bullshit like that. Some people really do get hurt. I'm not even talking about mentally. Sometimes even physically. Children do get hurt, and the school just completely dismissing it, that's irresponsible. That's where I could see the movement really needs to take strength. But I do also feel that along with that, there needs to be a way to get some sense of accountability and empowerment among the students. You can't just be there playing, nanny. You got to give these students a sense of, like, character empowerment. You got to make them know and feel what's right for themselves. Because you know what? To be upfront, what if you have the child is too scared to speak up and say that they're being bullied? And even then, you have this paradigm where it's like, okay, you got the bullies, so what do you do with them? They're still children, they still got to be educated. You only expel them, but that doesn't help them progress. What are you going to put the cost on the parents' burden? Maybe. Only because maybe they're not being trained right, but everything's kept a secret because somebody's not speaking up. Like I said, responsibility and accountability also have to be emphasized too. The other thing I wanted to point out was it's very hard to think about. I'm actually trying to figure out what's right or not for Sansi and style education, but in the event of bullies, what's the appropriate way to handle with them as a first response rather than long-term, like in the name of that, expelling, juvie, that sort of thing. If some places still hit their students, like with the slap on the hand with the ruler or whatever, in today's environment that's seen as cruel, because now you're having the state essentially spank a child. But on the other hand, the parents are not there to help discipline the child, so they kind of have to put the burden on the state. But at the same time, you touch somebody's child, that's kind of fucked up too. So, like I said, I'm still trying to figure out what's a good way to really look into that. Personally, I would say try not to touch them, but there's got to be a way to, like, really put them in their place if they go wrong. Like, one thing I've been a real fan of, going back to my State Defense Force experience, I just liked that if somebody fucked up, everybody takes, including them, the punishment. So everybody kind of, like, works with each other kind of thing. But that might also cause a problem because now everybody knows who to blame. And they'll give them hell for it. So even that I question. But the idea is the punishment, when you did something wrong, it freaking worked. And if it's not in the form of collective punishment, you could just do it just for, like, really reaming on them. Just to really, like, show your sense of authority, that kind of thing. There's ways to do it. I just got to figure out which is the best one for Sansia to take. But that's what's on my mind as far as, like, the anti-bullying campaign goes. Long story short, schools should be responsible and step their game up because bullying can be a serious problem. At the same time, there needs to be a way to really build character in the children. Not just character and responsibility. Because if the children still remain silent just because you got all this, anti-bullying business, you know, everybody's not going to know. The parents of the bully won't know. The parents of the bullied won't know. The school won't know. And everybody in the end, takes the flack for it. That's basically all I can think of right now. I guess that'll conclude today's episode. I guess I'll see if I can come up with another one until then. Toodles, people.